Hope you got your entries in. Musiccontest.co. The contest is now officially over. We're going to be going through a lot of submissions. We got some really amazing ones. You're going to be finding out in the next couple weeks who wins the $15,000 prize pack. This is Seth Mosley, and you're listening to the Full Circle Music Show, the why of the music is. Have you ever wondered what it takes to break a new artist? Is it about a big break or is it a marathon? Well, today you're going to find that out. We had a phenomenal interview with Josh Bailey, head of A&R for Word Entertainment. Note, I did not say Word Records. It's Word Entertainment. We're going to dive in deep to Josh Bailey's story, how he got to where he is without even having a college degree in music at all. And I'm going to let him share a little more of that. But before we do, I wanted to make sure you heard from me personally. You've only got a few days left to sign up for the Brian Tracy 3-day event, May 13th through 15th in Dallas, Texas. Go to briantracymeetsfullcircle.com. briantracymeetsfullcircle.com. Josh Bailey in this interview talks about the importance of team and having the right connections. This event is a phenomenal way to do just that and to upgrade your network, upgrade your connections, and to maximize your own personal development. So check it out again, briantracymeetsfullcirclemusic.com. I'll be there hanging out all 3 days. I'd love to see you there. And let's jump into the interview. Got Josh Bailey in the house today.
Yep. What?
You've been here many times, never on these occasions. But thanks for being on Full Circle Music Show today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Good way to start a Monday morning.
Yeah. So that's a good way to jump in the conversation. Monday morning, what's the first thing on your mind? For those people who don't know out there, you're head of an A&R for a really successful label called Word Records. And what's first thing on your mind Monday morning?
Well, I'm usually checking my schedule to make sure I'm aware of what all's going on today. Thankfully, yesterday I checked my schedule to remember that I was coming over to hang with you. But yeah, I mean, I woke up this morning at 4:45 and probably spent the first 2 hours of the morning just catching up on email since Friday.
Is 4:45 your normal go time?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually somewhere between 4 and 5, honestly. At least over the last couple of months, it's been that way. I can't say that my whole career has been that way, but it's been a wild season. So for me, I've been getting up early. I prefer to do the early thing versus the night thing. So I get up early, and it's a good quiet time. Not a whole lot of people are up and emailing, so it allows me to catch up. Catching up from kind of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever happens over the weekend. Obviously, artists are working nights and weekends most of the time. So there's usually a lot that happens over the weekend that I try to avoid as much as I can so I can have family time and just get away from things. So Mondays catch up, and Mondays we've got a lot of our kind of meetings in the office for the week. So we kind of start off with quite a few meetings as well. But yeah, I kind of consider Monday mornings kind of recovery time from the weekend.
I gotcha. So for the position that you have now, you're the head of a successful A&R for a record label. I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and sneeze and get that job.
Yeah, that's right.
What's the backstory? I mean,
Sure.
how'd you get to where you're at?
Well, I always tell folks that when they ask me that I kind of fell into it. So I didn't wake up and have the job, but I do say that I kind of fell into it. And really, I say that because I didn't go to school for it. I went to a little private Christian school up in Ohio. Great school. Yeah, OH, IO. And I was going to get into politics. I was going to go to law school. Took the LSAT. Worked in D.C. for a little bit with a U.S. senator. Had the opportunity to go back after graduated and had a job lined up and was applying to law schools. And I just felt like this tug that it wasn't what I was supposed to do. I didn't really want to go to school for another 3 or 4 years. And I just didn't know if I wanted to get into the whole political game. So I decided that, hey, I had a passion for music. It made a huge impact on my life growing up. And I wasn't much of a musician. I played growing up. I played piano, played in the jazz band, did some saxophone, alto and baritone. So I was around music a lot, but it wasn't my gifting per se. Even when I did play in those things, I always felt like I was a hack.
Can we find videos of that online somewhere?
I don't think so. I'm too old now.
Not on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't think there was no camera phones back then. Yeah, I just decided, you know what? I just felt like the Lord lead me to Nashville. I didn't really know a whole lot of people, but felt like, hey, if I'm going to get into music, specifically maybe even Christian music, Nashville would be a great place to be. So I moved down here in 2004, right after I graduated from college. My degree is in public administration and political science, so nothing to do with music. And moved down here in summer of 2004. Got a job at a restaurant waiting tables for a few months, and quickly then met a guy named Tom Jackson, which is he's a live show producer. Works with a lot of artists all over the world actually, and speaks at a lot of events. And worked for Tom for 6 to 8 months and learned a lot about independent music and on the stage, and just really kind of fell in love with the whole idea of working with artists. During that time, I got to meet Rod and Susan Riley, which at that moment were they owned a little independent record label called Fervent Records, which was doing extremely well. It was distributed by Provident. I actually got to meet them through now my wife, Kellen. She was working for them already, and so her and I were hanging out. I don't even think we were even dating at that point. And I got to meet Rod and Susan, and that quickly led to a lot of conversations of how I could help them as they were kind of exploring actually selling their company to Word and Warner. That quickly led to them offering me to come over and help before they sold the company. So I came over in early 2005 and started helping them. And then the company sold, I think, in April of 2005, and we all moved over to Word. So I only had a couple months there as an independent, and then we moved over to Word and became part of Word. But I really didn't have a specific job at that point. I was kind of doing a lot of different things. I worked in the events department for a little bit at Word, which at the time was just kind of like our corporate events, sales conference, that kind of stuff. So I worked there for a couple months, and then I think honestly, because I had no idea what A&R was, still figuring that out. But
so that's what I was going to ask. You didn't get hired first as an A&R person.
No, not at all. Because I didn't go to school for it. I didn't study anything about music business.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what the positions were.
And you never interned at a label.
No, never interned. Nope.
Interesting.
So it was just, it was purely relationships. And I think because over probably that 6 months of when I started before they sold the company, then probably the 3 or 4 months post-sale, the sale of it, I think I probably on a couple occasions sent some artists over to, at the time Susan Riley was running not only running Fervent, but then started running A&R at Word. I think I sent some artists over her way just to make her aware of them. So, and she just felt like maybe this guy could help me out in A&R. She needed some help. So that's why I tell people I fell into it.
That's awesome. So have you noticed your kind of background in politics helping you in the music business?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like, whether it's politics or, I just think the relational thing, is pretty key, kind of understanding people and being able to relate to them and talk with them and gain trust and influence is pretty key in the role. So I feel like people realize I have a pretty soft approach and try to be tender in the way I interact with people as much as I can, but also still have, some authority and hey, I got to speak from my heart, got to speak from my gut of what I think is right. I think all those kind of tie into a little bit of that, political thing. Not that all politics are super honest and truthful all the time, but yeah, a rabbit trail there. But yeah, I do think that kind of plays into some of my abilities and what I'm doing in the A&R role.
Yeah. Well, it's a political business, and it really is all about. I like that you brought up those two words, influence and trust. And how does that play into being a good A&R person?
Well, artists and songwriters can be delicate, and they're creative. They live in their heads a lot, but then they're asked to put that out on the table through songs and music, and so there's a lot of sensitivities there. And for me, I want to be respectful of that and understand that, hey, this business, of music and creating it there's not necessarily a right and wrong, There's a lot of great and there's some bad too, and trying to help folks that I work with become better through my experiences over the last 11 or 12 years. For me to have a seat at that table, I feel like you really have to gain their trust, and that then gives you the ability to influence what they're doing. So to me, those are key things, and it's not in a twisted way. It's really in just hey, this is a part of relationship. This is part of walking through this. For us to be able to work together, we need to trust each other, and we have to allow each other to speak into what we're doing. So, and it's an open door my way too. I want artists to come back to me and say, hey, it really would be helpful if you did this way, or you treated it this way, or whatever. For me, it's always a learning experience, and there's always something new, and the business is always changing. So I want to be really open-handed about how I do my job and how I interact with folks.
Yeah. So we've had a few A&R guys on the show so far. What is your definition of what do you do? What does an A&R person do? Because we've heard airports and restaurants.
I have a different A for airports, but I'll keep it to myself. But yeah. Sorry, yeah, I'll let you finish it. Your what you've heard so far.
No. That's essentially
airports
it.
and restaurants.
Airports, restaurants, and signing artists.
Yeah, I think A&R is one of the few roles, at least at our label, that has probably changed the least, but yet it's still changed a lot. I mean, there's been so much change over the last 15 years when it comes to record labels. Honestly, we don't even refer to ourselves as a record label anymore. We're a music company, and we do a lot of different things.
You don't refer yourselves as a record label; you're a music company. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and we can dive into that.
Well, what does that mean?
Well,
you're the first person I've ever heard say that.
Yeah. Well, record label is just one part of what we do, and I represent the whole company in a lot of different areas. The front of our building says Word Entertainment. It doesn't say Word Records. It doesn't say Fervent Records. It doesn't say records at all, because we're in a business that really, honestly, is so much more than records now. And for us, the mentality and the philosophy of referring to ourselves as a record label is just so dated. So for us, we're thinking about how we partner with our artists and our songwriters and our filmmakers in a whole different way, and it's got to be wider than records. I think entertainment company is great, music company. There's a lot of different ways you can spin it, and really, honestly, that comes down to that we have our own live events company, we have our own booking agency. None of those really have a whole lot to do with selling records. Yeah, they impact it, but their business isn't to sell records. Their business is to sell a show or put an artist on a tour or whatever. So those are parts of our company that don't necessarily have a whole lot to do with a typical record label model. Now, we're all tied in really well together, and we all work very closely. So, but yeah, I mean, we distribute records, and we make records, and we sell records, and we promote them. But we're just, how we partner with artists is much different than the typical record label model. And we're thinking much wider than selling records these days. So
that probably gives you a little bit different role already as an A&R person.
Yeah, good way to tie that back in.
Because typical, A&R in the past was sign the artist and help them make their record, right?
Yep. And honestly, that's where I spend a lot of my time. But when I'm sitting down with an artist, whether new or one that we've had and established, we're talking differently. It's not just about records. And not that other people around town that are a little more record label model focused aren't doing this as well. It's just I have to go into a conversation with a new artist and talk wider than just making the record and songs. I want that to be our focus in the A&R conversation, but as I'm talking about what we do as a company, we're thinking much more global and wider in the sense of how we partner with them. So our deals are structured that way. Obviously you've heard the 360 thing thrown around a lot, and there's
explain that just for people out there who maybe don't have any clue what that is or have any framework for that.
Sure. I think there's quite a bit of negativity around it, but for us, it's the only way we do business, really. For us, it's very focused on being active in all these rights that we're asking for, and we want to bring opportunities in a lot of different areas, and not just worrying about selling records. Going back to the whole word entertainment, the whole music company, we've got to think broader. So, our deals just consist of our quote unquote 360 deals. I kind of like to refer to them as artist service deals. There's a couple other probably great phrases to explain it as well. But I think for us, it's very focused in kind of expanding our rights in some other key areas that have growth. We invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into trying to launch an artist. And then as that launch happens, and if it's successful, you're going to keep spending more and more money, even just on that first record. So, you could be in $400,000 or $500,000 if things are working really well on a project, sometimes even more. So for us, we know that in the current business model, you're probably not going to make that money back by just selling the records.
Yeah.
So for us, we want to be involved. Obviously, we're launching this artist. We're investing all this money into it. We want to be involved in some of the areas to help get some of that, investment back. And we think, hey, if we're going to ask for that, then we're going to invest in those areas too. It's more important to us for those areas to work. So whether it's live and touring, what's happening in socials and online, e-commerce, there's all these areas that we have rights in that we do ask for something back from the artist at a certain point. Typically, it's not right away. We want our artists to be healthy. We want our artists to tell their folks that, hey, this works. So we don't want to just start grabbing things right away. We want the artist to build a little bit before we start asking for anything back. We want them to make money. If they're not making money and are healthy and can survive and then thrive, if this thing works, we're not being a good partner. So we try to be very delicate and careful about when we start seeing some of those rights back to us. But I tell you what, in the last 6, 7, 8 years, we've invested more in the live space with our artists than ever. 2 new artists that we're launching this year. I mean, we're anything we possibly can do to help them on the road, whether it's, production stuff, vehicles, whatever it is, we're more inclined, it's a case by case thing, but we're more inclined to invest in those areas because we want to build in that and we have ownership in it. So, for us, we want to be good partners in this model. And to do that, yes, we ask for something back down the road, but we also are investing in those areas as well. So, to me, it makes sense. The record label mentality is dated. Music is so much more than selling a product, and honestly, the whole selling a piece of product, as far as what we know of today, it may eventually go away. And how you see people consuming and what streaming's doing versus even digital downloads and obviously physical. It's just a very different business.
Sure. So do you guys not see as a company streaming being a viable way to replace what was there in selling a record?
No, we do actually. I mean, I have no crystal ball to know whether it's going to fully replace, I think, don't quote me on these numbers, the music business, I think worldwide was like a $15 billion business at one point. I think that's a worldwide number. That could just be a U.S. number. But I think it used to be about a $15 billion business, and now it's half of that, give or take. So I don't know. Is streaming going to make up for that? I think it has the potential to, and I hope it does. You and I never lived in that world.
Right.
We never lived or we weren't in the business when it was, at that level. So I don't really know what that means, even if we would get back to it. But I do think streaming has the ability to really impact and I think really help music and artists and songwriters, if we can get it all right, really flourish. Because I don't know about you, but I enjoy consuming music in this manner so much more than I used to. Yeah, did I love looking at CDs or cassettes and looking at all the paper, all the packaging and all that kind of stuff? Sure, I enjoyed all that, and it was fun to see that. But just the ease and the ability, how quickly you can consume music, I enjoy that even more because you can really broaden the amount of music that you can listen to in a period of time. I mean, even this weekend, I was streaming all kinds of stuff as I was working around the house, stuff that before I would never even have a chance of listening to because I would never go to the store or go on iTunes and buy it. But now I can stream some weird playlist on Spotify, for 8 hours during the day while I'm working that I would never have a chance of having any interaction with that music. So I think long term it's definitely the right way, and I'm excited about it. And I
So
think
you don't miss carrying around the CD binder with 1,000
yeah, I was
CDs
thinking
in
like
it?
your visor in your car with all your CDs.
Did yours ever like fall off
Oh
while you were
yeah, yeah. And
driving
the
all
sun
the time?
starts eating away at the elastic. So yeah, I mean, I don't miss any of that. Honestly, I'm almost to the point where I've gotten rid of most of all my CDs and stuff. I have a little rack in my office where I have our product that we've made, and I've got a drawer full of stuff. But I do, there is going to be a point where I just toss it all, and I hate that. It feels like that's not something I should do, but especially working in the business. But it's all available at your fingertips wherever you're at, pretty much.
So that's an interesting point. You work in music, but sounds like you listen to a lot of music
Oh
outside
man,
of work.
it's nonstop, and it's not even honestly, it's not even because I work in it. I just enjoy music. Do I get tired sometimes? Sure, and I have to. There's sometimes I drive home and I'm sitting in silence, and just taking a break from it. But ultimately, anything I'm doing, typically, there's usually music somewhere involved in it. And, like even being at home on the weekends and stuff, I love having music a part of whatever I'm doing. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoy music. I would say I probably, especially even with the streaming thing, I've expanded, what I listen to, even more than 5 years ago. So I definitely still have a high level of enjoyment that I get out of music.
You got any favorites right now?
Oh man,
Or
you know what?
Is it embarrassing? Is it
no,
like,
no,
is it
not at
like,
all.
Is it all K-pop?
I haven't gotten into the K-pop thing. I am somewhat familiar with it. I have little girls at home. I'll be interested to see what it's like in 5 or 10 years. But I've been listening to a lot of instrumental stuff, a lot of instrumental playlists. I think that's probably part of me,
Like Tycho?
yeah, part of me decompressing from a week full.
Yeah.
And I spend so much time in the song world too that it's kind of nice occasionally to not listen to music that has any lyric. So, kind of like a lot of house remix, that kind of stuff that it still has a lot of energy and still has a pop thing to it, but, maybe doesn't always have a lot of lyric. So that's kind of lately what I've been listening a lot to. I don't know if my wife likes it, so
So you're out mowing the grass, doing the Night at the Roxbury to house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Please don't take pictures. So, but yeah, I think music will always be a part of what I'm doing, whether I'm working in the business or not. Because I mean, it was such a big part of even growing up. I've always enjoyed music.
Yeah. So you kind of hit a good bit. One of the questions I was going to ask was, I mean, if you could put your meteorologist hat on and give us a forecast of what the next 5 to 10 years are going to be like in the music business. I mean, I'm sure you guys are meeting about those things every week in the office. What are some of the things you guys are talking about? If you're not to divulge all your secrets.
No, not at all. I don't know if there's any secrets. I honestly I couldn't tell you what the next 6 months is going to look like. I mean, do we forecast? I'm typically looking at our release schedule for 3 years out, and planning for kind of releases and working on records and that kind of stuff as far out as I possibly can, just so that we have the best chance of making the best music we can. There's definitely some planning there. We're definitely looking at all the kind of metrics and where consumers are leaning and how they're consuming. There's everyone's kind of stating this, and I think it's been the case for the last 10 or so years. There's just been this, increasing growth of consumption. So for us, it's all about, okay, we know people are consuming music more than ever, and there's so much more out there that to be consumed. How are we going to, what's the model to keep it a thriving business, and what's the finances look around that? So, I mean, we're real positive about it, honestly, just because we are diversified in how we are partnered with our artists. So, we're doing some of our own tours. We're, obviously involved in the booking side of things. We're involved in merch and e-commerce. We're doing a ton in the sponsorship space. So those are kind of some of the areas that I would say for us, prediction-wise, like looking at the future, I think those are all key areas that we see growth. I think probably at least for the next 5 years, I still think, radio and touring are two of the biggest areas of, exploiting new artists and artists, period. Like there's still so much to be done there and so much growth, we feel like. I'm really excited about what's going on in touring and radio. That's still going to be a big focus, but these other areas that I just mentioned, I think, are areas that we're trying to forecast. How do we grow those areas, and how do we develop those areas? So we talk about branding all the time. It's definitely overused at this point, but branding is a big key conversation of whether it's our tours or our artists or even songwriters and filmmakers. There's how do you stand out amongst everything that's out there? So yeah, I mean, forecast wise though, I still think consumption's going to grow. I still think there's going to be music being created and played somewhere in 5 years. Yeah, I mean, I still think there's going to be a radio format of some sort. And I think you look at Christian radio. I think a lot of the numbers show you that it's growing too. So I'm pretty excited about where the future goes. I mean, I'm always glass half full, but that's the mentality at Word, and that's from the top down. I mean, this can be a thriving business. It is a thriving business. It's a very different business than it was 15 years ago. But let's find ways to partner with artists and find opportunities for them, and hopefully partner with them in a way that fulfills what their calling is and their mission and their ministry. So yeah. I don't know if that answered that question.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
It's great answer. And that kind of leads me to think about over the last, 4 years, 5 years, I haven't been in the business that long, but one thing that has stood out to me, and I think people around Nashville know Word Entertainment as, is breaking new artists phenomenally well, both at radio and both at live.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a prerequisite that you guys, that kind of has to be there when you guys sign an artist? What, do you require, hey, artist has got to have X number of social media followers? Do they have to already have done X amount of tour dates? Are they, what are some of those things, if there are any?
Honestly, there aren't. I mean, all those things are helpful, but I mean, I would say the majority of the artists that we've signed over the last 10 years, they haven't had any huge numbers. For us, it's, there's not a whole lot of analytics that go into it, even in making music and somewhat even in marketing it. I think at the end of the day, people want to consume something that makes them feel something, that it's an emotion. It's, there's something heart-wise and mind-wise involved in music. For us, that's how we go about partnering with artists. Let's find artists that, we look at our roster, we look at what's out there market-wise. We pay attention to it a lot, but I want to work with somebody that moves me, and I feel like it's going to move an audience. I do my job, I would say, for the most part, as I try to, anyways, as a consumer. I want to think about who we're working with and how we're creating music as an audience. Whether you're in the car or you're streaming at home or whatever it is, however you consume music. I want to think that way. I don't want to think of as someone that's a part of the process. That's a hard thing, especially 11, 12 years into doing it. But I still try to think with that mentality. That's why I don't consider myself a musician. I try to step to the side on that and listen more as a consumer. So coming back around, the prerequisites, no, really, honestly, no. I mean, I love to work with an artist that does have a great live show and is a great songwriter. And typically we're signing artists that is excelling in one of those areas, if not both. But, every artist comes in at a different level, and it's our job to help develop that and help them grow and put them with the right people and the right creative folks and partnerships to do that. So, it usually comes down to some connection, some heart connection, honestly, that, makes us feel like, hey, this is a good partnership to have. And, we want to work with people that want to work with us. If there's a lot of fantastic artists out there that have gone on to sign at other labels that, we were interested in talking to, or we put a deal out in front of, whatever it is, there's been a lot of those that have come and gone that end up somewhere else. And that's great. I love that. And they have success, and I'm cheering for them from the sidelines. But for us, we want to work with the right artists, and I try not to over spiritualize it, but I just feel like the right ones are going to come our way, and we're going to make sense and partner with, and, ones that don't make sense for us need to go, go somewhere else. So, that's a good segue, because I was thinking, getting into the weeds a little bit. What are the last 3 things that you've signed? Oh goodness, I got to remember that. Last things that was 3 things that were signed. We just signed a new artist, a guy named Stephen Malcolm, actually last Monday. So we're really excited about Stephen. He's a hip hop artist. So excited about Steven. Before that, probably a band called We Are Messengers that just recently released. A guy named Darren Mulligan. He's from Ireland, and just love his spirit and just excited about that project. Before that, probably a band called Stars Go Dim. We signed Stars, though, several years ago, and that's just been a development story for the last 3 years. We've got several other deals out right now that we're about to wrap up. So
Let's talk about specifically those three, just because I know a lot of people out there who are artists or, thinking about being an artist. The question is always, how do you get your stuff found by a label?
Sure.
Or how do you get your stuff found by the right label?
Mm-hmm.
So with those three examples, how did those come about? What was the initial connection?
I mean, I can't speak for the entirety of Steven because I didn't actually sign Steven myself. It's one of our other A&R guys, Joseph Prolazny, that signed Steven. But and I'm not recalling kind of the first initial connection there. But I mean, majority of the time, it's through relationship. Darren Mulligan, the We Are Messengers band, he was brought to me by a manager here in town. So that was just random relationship with that. That kind of built into something from nothing.
So what does that specifically look like? Does he send you an email and say, "Hey, I have this guy, check out his music," or is it like, "Hey, would you grab coffee with this guy? Would you go see a show?"
Sure.
What
I mean,
it
can fluctuate a little bit, but yeah, it was a, hey, you need to check out this link of this video that this guy from Ireland did. So it was a song, it was a music video, and it just captured me right away. I was in right from the get go. There was something about he obviously his voice and the way he sang the song, and just you could tell there was some life and experience on this guy just through this video that was and emotion and passion in it that I was captivated right away. So I knew I needed to talk to this guy. He was in Ireland, though. He and his family lived there. So we did a FaceTime or a Skype call and kind of spent an hour doing that. And I knew after that, hey, got to get this guy here. We got to spend some time with him, see what the team thinks. So, every process is a little different, but yeah, I mean, usually it's some kind of introduction in some manner, and it's, hey, hear this or watch this, and then I have the chance to do that and figure out, okay, do I want to take this a step further? So yeah, I mean, that one probably took from the time I first found out about him till the time the deal was done, maybe 5-6 months. And I would say, honestly, that's pretty quick. I would say typically it's probably more like a year or so. Yeah. To once the time you meet somebody, to the time the deal's done and you're starting to work together.
So what happens in that year? Are you working together even before your deal's kind of signed?
Yeah, I do. I try to. We try to, depending on whether they're here or not. If they're not here, especially if they're overseas, try to get the deal done before we start spending a bunch of money, traveling,
like
and
flying them.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. But with Darren specifically, he wanted to move here. He wanted to move his family here. He felt like that was what he was supposed to do. So basically, I think he just came once. Then we decided to do the deal, got the deal done, and then he moved his family over. So he really stepped out and took a risk there and a chance.
Was that you saying, "Hey, do you want to move to Nashville," or how did that even?
I felt like I think we both came to the conclusion that for this to work, that he needed to be here. So and not necessarily right in Nashville. I mean, I just think he needed to be here in the States somewhere. So and it just made sense for him to be here. So and I think he would tell you today that it was most definitely the right decision. So in making music and just going through that development and creative process, it's extremely helpful for an artist to be close. It's more cost effective too, having to fly and travel and all that kind of stuff to write. I mean, Darren wrote probably 120 songs over the course of that year of developing and making his record. That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of songs. Not every artist does that, but for him, he wanted to keep going. So, and I loved it. So yeah, if
you got 120 to get down to 15 or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And if he was in Ireland, there was not a chance we would have that many songs. So, yeah. And it would have cost us a whole lot more money to make the record. Yeah. So
from what I know of him as a person, there's probably some good songs in that extra 100.
Yeah, actually, honestly, we've had several cut already, and some significant cuts as well. So
new cut on the Passion record.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Crowder jumped in on a song with him.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. So
I'll take all the other ones, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's definitely some gems in there that just didn't fit. We didn't feel like they fit his record, but some fantastic songs. So yeah, every process is a little different with artists. I do think.
What about Stars Go Dim? Do
Yeah.
you remember the introduction?
Yeah, I honestly I think that was through a producer writer in town and a manager, kind of both bringing that to us. And we were familiar with the band because they've had a little success as independent artists. I had some radio success several years ago at the CHR format, so we were familiar with them. So brought kind of the main guy Chris Cleveland in town and was hanging with him, and the guy can sing, and we really enjoyed our time and felt like, hey, if we're all vision wise going in the same direction on this, this could be something really cool. So, and we were, and took a little bit to get that deal done, just like any deal, honestly. And then it was just a process. That they're from Tulsa, and it was just a process of writing and developing and figuring out what this thing looks like, and making sure we crafted the right project for the vision that we all put together. So it just took more time. And some of that leads back to the fact that they weren't here. So it's naturally going to take more time. We sent quite a few folks out to Tulsa to work with them as well. And, it was just kind of back and forth for probably a year and a half or so of trying to figure out where this is going to go. And then we finally landed the plane and felt like we had the majority of everything we needed. And so yeah, that was just a little longer developmental process, but some of that was also not only the long distance thing, but they also several of them have full-time worship leader roles in local churches there. So we wanted to be sensitive to that too, and allow them to keep doing that if that's what they wanted to do. So yeah, we just trying to treat every situation differently and not just kind of run it through a process that we do with everybody.
Maybe you can speak a little bit, because you talked about it for yourself earlier, and you just talked about it from Darren's perspective, from We Are Messengers and the Stars Go Dim example. How important is it to move to Nashville if you want to get into the music business?
Yeah, I think the significance of being here would just be you have a better chance of connecting with folks and building relationships with folks maybe a little more organically and naturally. You're going to cross paths with more people in the business. You're going to have the opportunity to collaborate with people. Obviously you still have to get in the room with those people, and they have to be willing, whoever it is that you want to get in the room with. And you may have to, start at a certain level and build your way to certain folks. But, I think there's just a proximity thing of more people that are doing what you want to do. And, I think it also honestly speaks to your commitment. It's not a must. We have, I would say, probably close to half our roster doesn't live here, so it's not a must. But especially as a developing artist and an independent artist, I do think if you can figure out a way for it to make sense, you're at least going to have the ability on the developmental and creative side to have more opportunities. But if you're not here, I just encourage folks to find other people around you to collaborate with and partner with, whether it's writing and the recording, the creative process, or even touring wise. I always tell artists, hey, if you there's a couple of touring bands or artists around you that are doing similar things and you have a similar audience, open up for them and their show at the town next to you, and then do the reciprocal, and they come open up for you and in your town or whatever. So you're not going to do this on your own. You've got to have people in your lives to help you develop. It's just like anything in life. We're not meant to do this alone. So, and music is very much the case of that. You need good people around you to help you become better at whatever you're doing, and not just your mom or your brother, your sister, whatever, your dad. You need people that have been involved in the business, and it's hard. It's hard to find people to trust sometimes, but I do think it's very important to surround yourself with great people.
Yeah, well, that's a little nugget of gold for everybody out there. You're not going to do it on your own. Music's very much a team sport.
Yep.
And speaking of teams that have become successful, one of probably I would think, just from an outside perspective, one of your more prouder moments in the last 10 years has been with, well, I guess not moment, but I guess just artist. One of your proudest artists in the last several years is this band For King and Country.
Yeah.
So Can you share a little bit, because there's not a day that goes by that you kind of don't hear their name come up in some kind of conversation, whether it's about their live show or their record, or hey, they just played, Today Show, or
Sure.
doing a movie, or whatever it is. Their name somehow is always coming up.
Yeah, that's one of those things that that's been a long time in process. Honestly, probably for close to 20 years, if not more. They've been around the business for a long time. Their sister
20 years.
Yeah, their sister. They're still young guys, but their sister has been in the business, Rebecca St. James, and had a really successful career. And they toured with her a lot and had a lot of experience on the road and helping manage her touring and performing with her and opening for her. So they've been around this thing for a long time and seen and heard a lot. Their father, which is also their manager, was in the business. They're from Australia originally. He was in the business there and a promoter, and learned a lot there, then came here, and they've been through a lot, and they've had a lot of life experience when it comes to music, being on the road. So all that, I think, culminates to where they're at today, and just their ability to put on the live show that they put on, the songs that they write. They've been around the business for a long time, and really have a ministry heart and a real focus on what they're doing. So I've been working with them probably for, 5 or 6 years now, and it's just been, they've challenged me a lot, and they're very, very dear to me, and I love working with them. Yeah, those guys are definitely one of a kind. So honestly, when we first started with them, though, it was kind of trying to figure out where do they go, where do they fit. They were very different for our market. There was a lot of work. We made a whole record and then decided, what, this isn't done yet. It isn't right yet. So went back in and did 4 more songs. So they've been through quite the developmental process early on. But I think all that's really paid off, obviously, where they're just having a ton of success and really connecting well, and fans are loving what they do. So yeah, I've just been glad to been along for the ride.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear you say that. So there hasn't been any grand strategy that you guys have done different with them than anybody else.
No, I think for us, it's going back to treating everybody kind of what they are and trying to partner with them in the right way. And those guys, I think we've just tried to put fuel in the fire where need be. They've always had a vision and a sense to go wider than even just the Christian market, and they're getting some of those opportunities now. It's not a main focus, but it's definitely part of their story.
I'd love to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Because that's something that I hear, at least once a week from an artist. Man, I'd love to cross over. I'd love to, whatever it is, use Switchfoot as an example,
Sure.
or start in the Christian market, or even outside of this thing, maybe they start in country and cross over to pop.
Yeah.
Is that something you can strategically do?
Yeah, I can't speak with a ton of authority on it, but I will say that, for us, we want to partner with artists that their focus is still in faith-based music. That's kind of our core of who we are. But I do think more now than ever, there's opportunities for that. We're seeing it across the board, whether it's an artist that, we really do feel like has the ability to go crossover and be in a wider audience, or an artist that probably never will, but there's still opportunities, especially in how we work with artists, whether it's, sponsorship related, or just partners, period. No matter what your business is, most businesses are looking for more consumers and more eyeballs, and they're willing to try different things to go about doing that. So, a lot of artists, especially as they grow and build, they have a lot of folks that pay attention to what they're doing. So there's opportunities to explore that and partner in ways that goes beyond just Christian side of things. So now, there is strategy to taking an artist to more of a mainstream audience. There's a radio strategy. We're working on that right now. We've done one single to Hot AC mainstream radio for King Country, and now we're discussing what do we do next and what that looks like. I think any format is looking for artists that not only fit it but that are committed to it. So, for us, it's a big commitment. If we're going to keep doing this, there's a lot of time and effort and money that goes into it. You have to find the right partners. We can do some of it in-house, but, some of it we have to go elsewhere partnership wise. So
Well, that's key, and I don't want to just gloss over that formats, no matter what the format is, whether it's country or Christian or pop or college rate, whatever it is, are looking for committed artists. And if that's not you, if you're like, hey, I really don't like the format, but I'd like to just have the radio play, it's probably not going to be a long-term.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I'm always looking for when looking at artists is if someone's coming in and just they're looking for this as, a stepping stone to something else, this probably is not going to be a fit for us because we want people that are committed to it. That's what the audience wants. That's what the gatekeepers want. They want someone that's really committed to buying in and influencing and really being a part of that base. So for us, we're not going to sign an artist that just wants. Typically, we're not going to sign an artist that just wants to go and do a mainstream thing because we're probably not the right home. So I think it's very important. I too, I'm a little worn out by the whole, hey, we really just want to do a mainstream thing, and that's fine. Not that an artist that's great if that's where the artist fits and that's what they're supposed to do. Awesome,
but they're probably not going to be a great
it's
fit
just probably not a fit for
you.
us, or probably not even a fit, Christian radio in the Christian market. So or if it's country or if it's pop, there has to be a commitment there because it's not going to happen just overnight. You're going to have to build to it. Yeah, you could have a big hit still in the market, but are you going to have several and build a career out of it? My guess is no, if you're not committed to it.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, this has been incredibly insightful, and I think I learned a ton from it. I think other people are going to get a ton out of it too. Is there a trick or tip or hack or anything you'd like to leave the audience with of like, here's the thing you need to become successful as an artist?
We've really been talking a lot lately, just in our meetings and conversations at Word, is just authenticity. The word's overused, I get it. But I just think we're in a season of music more than ever that people want something that's real, and they want something that is they can connect to and that's meaningful, and they feel like is just honest. The word honest is being used a lot too. I mean, there's companies now with it, and there's just a searching for real. And I've been encouraging artists, whether our artists or artists that we're looking at or artists that have nothing to do with us, just be who you are. Don't try to just do something that you think is going to work. Do something that's you, that's unique, see where that leads, because ultimately I feel like if you're not authentic in what you're called to do and your artistry and who you are and what you want to do and who you want to speak to, it's eventually going to surface, whether it's, the lack of authenticity or the real you is going to surface. And if someone's partnered with you in a way that they think you're this, but you're really this, there's a good chance of it not ending well. So I've just been telling artists, kind of beating them over the head as much as I can in the right conversation of, let's not try to do this or go after this. Let's figure out who you are and what you want to do. And if that makes sense for all of us involved, great. If not, that's fine too. But I think being authentic is what people want. They want something real. So that's been my challenge to not only us in what we're doing. I mean, even myself in my role, I need to be who I am. I'm not going to be some other A&R guy or some other publishing guy or whatever. I'm going to be focused on, hey, these are my strengths and my weaknesses, and how do I do what I'm called to do? Yeah. So
that's phenomenal. So it takes a team, be committed, and be authentic. Those are some really good tips. So thanks, Josh Bailey, for being here with us today. Full Circle Music Show. It's been an honor. You've been listening to the Full Circle Music Show, the why of the music biz. Produced by Full Circle Music Company, with editing help by Jericho Scroggins. We'd love to see you on Snapchat. You guys have Snapchats out there? Follow us. Our username is Full Circle M, just the letter M, Full Circle M. Send us a snap. We'd love to interact with you on there. And if you haven't already, go to fullcirclemusic.org. We've got a free guide for how to set up your own studio. Check it out, fullcirclemusic.org, and you can get it right there today for free. We'll see you next week.